Mess Express. Hot Mess Express. Ouch. Ouch. Hi. Hi. And welcome to Balancedskein. My name is Kendra, and this is my YouTube channel where I talk about all the things I make with yarn and other yarny related topics. If you watched my first video, I owe you an apology because it was awful. I mean, like, who do I think I am? Whatever. This one should be better, and I hope you enjoy it. I'm really excited to talk to you guys about what I made and worked on throughout the month of May. There is a lot on my list. I have notes. Hopefully this video isn't an hour plus long like the first one was. And I hope my editing skills are just a smidge above what they were when I made my first video. So thank you so much for hanging in there with me. Thank you for everyone who's returning to view my second video, and thank you in advance for anyone who discovers this content and decides to subscribe. I'm happy to have you here. The more the merrier. I'm excited to share what I've been working on in May. We have some finished objects that were whips in my first video. We have some new cast-ons, some new projects. We have some test knits, which is a first for me. And we have a little bit of crochet as well. So I'm excited to share that with you guys. And let's jump in and get started. All right, so let's start with what I finished. So the first project I finished, I was so close to done when I first shared it with you guys in my first video, and I shared a lot of the basics in terms of the information, designer, the yarn, and so I apologize if this is repetitive from the first video, but I figured I would bring it back and talk about it today because I'm actually done with it, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. So, vest number 1. It's a little bit wrinkled, so I do apologize, and I hope it is in focus so you can see all the details. It's been folded up, but I think you get the gist of it. So this is a design by My Favorite Things Knitwear. It is a top-down seamless crew neck vest that fits like a dream, I'm telling you. In fact, I'll just try it on now because you deserve this content. I'll stand up and show you a little bit about how it fits. So yeah, it is a really nice fitting neck, which is what I really like about it. Some of the knitting patterns that I've seen, specifically top-down circular yoke patterns that have a crew neck design, what I see is that a lot of the necks sometimes get really stretched out. And I find that always to be the case when I see top-down patterns with a circular yoke. So this is top-down, but it is, you knit the front and back panel separately and you join in the round to complete the body. So it is not a circular yoke in a traditional sense, but it is a top-down piece. But because of the way it's constructed, you don't really have a ton of risk of that neckline stretching out. And so I really like it. It's super soft. It fits really well. I used almost all of the main color of yarn. So I'll share the yarn that I used for this project. So the burnt orange kind of rust color is Knit Picks Gloss DK, and the color is called Masala. And so I thought this was beautiful even on its own, and I knew I wanted to use this color, but I struggled a lot actually when I was trying to decide what mohair to hold with it, because I knew I wanted to do a DK weight held with the mohair. So the pattern calls for that, or just a worsted weight yarn held on its own. And so the mohair I chose is also Knit Picks, and this is the Knit Picks Aloft lace weight in the color Oat. So this is a mohair silk blend, and the masala is I believe a merino silk blend, if I'm not mistaken. But if I can remember to do so, I'll link it below so you guys can see the yarn for yourselves. So of the masala, I used, and this is, again, this is what I have left over. So the 2 balls I showed you are what I have left over in total. So I used pretty much all of the gloss DK, and I'm happy I don't have a ton of leftovers. So I bought the perfect amount, but I do feel like I could have knitted a little bit longer. So I'll stand up and show you where it hits on me. So this is my waist, and this is where I would consider to be my hip. So it's not quite hip length. And so if I wear, most of the pants I wear are high-waisted anyway, so I think it'll work for my wardrobe purposes, but that's something to keep in mind if you want to make this for yourself. So I did knit the size medium, and I used 600 yards of the gloss DK. So this is what's left of my 5th ball of this yarn. And I used 367 yards of the mohair. And this is what I have left of the 3rd ball. In total on this yarn, I spent about $74, and that includes the tax, and I think the shipping was free. So it was quite an investment, especially because it's not a full length, super big sweater, but it's silk and mohair and merino. So the fibers is really what you're paying for, and the drape and the fit and the feel of it is incredible. So it was worth every penny in my opinion. But if you want to recreate this piece for yourself, that's something to be aware of. I try to be transparent about what I spend on materials. Yeah, I really like how it turned out. I love the yarn. It is so squishy and warm and not itchy at all. And it's actually quite drapey as well. I don't know if this video is really translating the drapiness vibes, but it was a super, super successful project in my eyes, and I'm very happy with it. So yeah, that was the first finished object that I did in May. Okay, so the second project I finished in May is my 2nd sock. So I'm actually wearing them right now. Is that gross? But it is the Basic Rib Sock by Kate Atherley. I'll just take it off. So anyway, here's the sock. This is the Basic Rib Sock by Kate Atherley. And the yarn I used is by Bad Luck's Designs. It is her fingering weight yarn in the colorway Toasted Mallow. So I was perusing her website recently, and I didn't see this colorway was available. So you may not be able to get it now, but she has a bunch of beautiful yarn that you may want to check out. So I will link her website below so that you can browse at your leisure. So I cast on 64 stitches, and I have all of the specifics about how many rounds I did. I believe I did 80 rounds for the leg, and 74 rounds for the foot on 64 inches or 64 stitches, and I used a US 1.5, a 9-inch circular needle to create these, and then I used DPNs for the heel turn, the heel flap and turn, and the toe, but primarily these were on the 9-inch circulars. There's this guy who pulls up and honks outside of my neighbor's house as if cell phones don't exist and doorbells don't exist. And I actually won this yarn in a giveaway back in, I believe, maybe almost a year ago. It was hot outside and it was in 2020. So if that gives you any idea of when it was, and I can't remember any of the details, but it was a giveaway in a cup that featured this yarn and some stickers and an enamel pin from Channy Peace Corner that I don't have with me now, but I did not pay for this yarn. So those were the two projects that were whips back in April that I talked about in my first video. Everything that I talk about from now forward is going to be fresh stuff. So things that I haven't shared on this channel yet, but you may have seen it on Instagram. So the next project that I completed in May is actually my first ever test knit, and it is not a garment or an accessory, but actually a pillow, a decorative pillow. So this is called the Wobble Bobble Pillow by Sunny of Noodly Knits on Instagram. She is a fairly new designer, if I recall correctly, and she has a few patterns out there. So what I love about this project is that the bobbles are actually crocheted. And so I am far more experienced crocheter than I am a knitter. So this was kind of a merging of my two faves, which is knitting and crochet. And this is the first project that I've ever tried where I was able to incorporate both of those techniques. And so it was really fun to have, and it kept the pattern fun and engaging. And I really like how the bobbles turned out. And yeah, this is living on an accent chair in my living room currently, and so I popped it out of its living quarters to share with you here on this video. So the pattern is super customizable. So she has standard pillow form sizes included in the pattern, but she also includes a formula that you can plug in the measurements that you need, and you will be able to calculate how many stitches to cast on to fit the pillow that you have. So I made the 12 by 20 pillow, which is one of the standard sizes. So I didn't have to do any calculations to figure out how many stitches I needed to cast on, which is nice. So I just knit it to, I just cast on the number of stitches that she specified in the pattern for this particular size. The pattern recommends a 9mm needle, and that is what I used, so I didn't modify the needle size. So the yarn I used was from my stash, and it is the Loops and Thread Cozy Wool. This yarn is 50% wool and 50% acrylic. And it is a super bulky yarn, which is what the pattern called for. And I happen to have several balls of, as you can see, I'm holding a full ball now. So I have tons of it in my stash that I really didn't know what to do with. I think when I bought it, I had vague plans on what to do with it, but nothing concrete. And eventually I abandoned those plans, but I still had the yarn and I didn't know what to do with it. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to use up some of my super bulky yarn that I had no clue what to do with. And I'm super happy because it sparked a fire in me to go through the rest of my super bulky stash and just figure out something to do with it, because it was literally taking up an entire drawer in the dresser of my guest room and in our guest bedroom. And like, it was either you find something to do with it or get rid of it. And I didn't want to get rid of it. I kind of wanted to make something with it. It was just a struggle to figure out what I wanted to do. And this definitely sparked an inspiration within me to figure out what to do with the rest of my super bulky yarn. So the next project is also a test knit, like I said, and it is also a garment. It is called the Lakeline Tank by Ashley Lillis. And here it is. So forgive my janky end weaving skills. I mean, I'm sure you've seen better, but it's also at the back of the neck on the inside, so it's not that big of a deal. So this pattern is a pattern that's not released yet by a designer named Ashley Lillis. Ashley is great. I could go on about her, but you know what? I'll start my fan club later. So let's just talk about this design. So this is knit. This is a tank top using worsted weight yarn. It is knit bottom up, so you cast on the stitches for the bottom hem, and I think you do like something like 10 rows, maybe less, maybe like 4 or 5 rows of 1 by 1 ribbing, and you continue to straight stockinette up the body. So there's no waist shaping or anything like that. The only type of shaping or decreases or increases that you do is when you get to obviously the neckline and the armholes. And then you do an applied I-cord edging along the neck hole and the armholes. And I've never done an I-cord bind off or an applied I-cord or an I-cord edging. I have never in my life knit an I-cord whatsoever. And when I read that part of the pattern, I got quite nervous because I thought I would screw it up again. This is a pattern test, so I don't. I know I never feel comfortable trying a new skill for the first time for a pattern test because I feel like maybe designers expect you to be somewhat competent in the skills and techniques that are included in the pattern so that you can successfully test it. But I also think there's some benefits of being fairly new to a technique and testing it for the first time because you'll be a fresh set of eyes on whatever the technique is, and you will probably be the best gauge on whether something is explained properly or not. But I will get off of that soapbox and just say that it didn't go terribly. My first I-cord was not a failure, but I think it could have been better, mainly because I don't know if you can tell, but it's not stretchy at all. And I don't know that it was necessarily meant to be stretchy. It still fits perfectly fine. But when I finished knitting, like when I finished the I-cord on both the arms and the neck, it the neck hole and the armholes were considerably smaller than before I applied the I-cord. And so I feared that it would interfere with the way the garment fit. But I'll pop in some pictures and you can see pretty obviously that it still fits perfectly fine. And so that wasn't an issue at all. But I think going forward, I should probably work on loosening up my tension or maybe sizing up a needle size for I-cord edging so that it doesn't constrict the fabric too much, because the I-cords that I've seen most commonly are like along the edge of a shawl, for example, and you don't necessarily want it to be tighter than the rest of the fabric because it'll cinch it in and look a little strange. I think it worked out fine in this particular case, but going forward is something I need to consider if I make another pattern with an I-cord. But overall, I think it was a success. So the yarn. This is a cotton yarn. This is 100% Pima cotton. The yarn is Barocco Modern Cotton. It's really pretty. I love the color. The color is 1618, and the name of the color is Coffee Milk. Yeah, I want to make more stuff with this yarn. So like I said, it's 100% Pima cotton. I used 966 yards. I knit the size for the 48-inch bust. And I bought 4 balls, and this is what I have left of the 4th ball. And I spent $45. So not bad. Not bad at all. Pretty affordable. So I never used Barocco. I never used Barocco before, and I wasn't familiar with the yarn itself and how expensive or affordable it was, but I'm definitely happy with the overall cost of this. So yeah, that is the Lakeline Tank. So the next project is actually a work in progress. So we're all done with the items I finished in May. And now we're on to talk about some works in progress. So the first work in progress I want to talk about is actually a scrappy project um, to use up all my super bulky scraps. Scraps is a generous term. I mean, it is a hoard of super bulky yarn. It is, it's really bad. So when I tested the Wobble Bobble pillow for Noodly Knits, it got me wanting to use up more of my super bulky yarn. And super bulky yarn, sometimes I love it, but most times I don't. Like I like a chunky hat. Um, I might be able to rock with a chunky scarf, but for the most part, garments wise, there's not a lot of super bulky patterns that I gravitate toward. And so I had quite a lot of it that I bought way back that I just really had no concrete plans on what to do with. And some of it I had bought too much for projects that I made long ago. Some of it is actually more recently purchased. And again, I bought too much of it. Some of it I bought in the past and for a reason that never, or like an idea that never came to be. And so I just had the yarn with no plans for it. Um, but yeah, so the project that I'm making is actually a blanket, and it is called the Dahlia Scrapgan. And I'll show you what I have completed of it so far. So yeah, it is just at this point a series of puff circles. They're really pretty, and yeah, very fluffy and squishy. And I think the blanket is going to be incredibly comfortable, and I'm excited to work on it, but I'm in no particular rush. This yarn is actually Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick. Like I said, I have a lot of it, like a lot. Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick in the color Succulent. And this is what I used in my Wobble Bobble pillow, which is the Cozy Wool by Loops and Threads. And so that's what is currently in the circles that I have now. But I also have some more super bulky yarn that I plan to make more circles with, and that will be incorporated into the final blanket or blankets. I might have enough to make more than one. Like there's a lot. So this is Bernat Softy Chunky. It's 100% acrylic yarn. The Lion Brand Woolies Thick and Quick is 80% wool, 20% acrylic. This is some more Lion Brand Thick and Quick. And the color is Sea Glass. This is some more Lion Brand Thick and Quick. And the color Oat, I believe. Some more Succulent. Oh, this is more Cozy Wool. So the brown yarn I have in a charcoal color. The brown color is called Sandstone. Very pretty color. I love the different tones of brown within it. And this is more Bernat Softy Chunky in the colorway, I believe, Pewter. Yeah, this is called Pewter. Wow. I usually say I have an awful memory, but I do have a photographic memory, so I can usually remember what things are called. So this is more Loops and Thread Cozy Wool. And this color is called Velvet. So I don't know if you can see, but there's a range of different shades of purple and blue in this yarn. And I think it's really pretty. And I've had it for a long time. This is actually a gift 2 or 3 Christmases ago from my husband's family before we were married. Some more cozy wool. And this is a Knit Picks Mighty Stitch in the color Spruce. And this is 80% acrylic and 20% superwash wool. So this is leftover yarn from a cardigan I made for my grandmother a few months ago. So this entire whip, all of the circles, and the rest of my super bulky scraps are being kept in this basket on the side of my couch in the living room. So yeah, it is not an eyesore. It's actually, it's cute. It's a cute little setup, and I pick up this yarn and make a few circles whenever the mood takes me. I'm in no particular rush to finish it. And once I'm going to use all of the yarn in this basket, so all of my super bulky scraps to make the circles, and then when all the circles are complete, I will buy some more yarn in a neutral color to use as a background. But all of these colors, while they're very different, they do complement each other quite well. I think this is most of the colors. And I think they play very well together. So with a neutral background, I think this will create a cute little throw blanket vibe. I'm not mad at it. All right. So yeah. That is the Dahlia Scrapgan by Jess Copham of Make and Do Crew. So Make and Do Crew is, they have a website and a blog with a bunch of free patterns, and they have paid patterns as well, but they have a ton of really good free crochet patterns, and I would highly encourage you to check them out. A lot of them are very beginner friendly, and this pattern in particular, I think, is used or designed for super bulky, for bulky yarn and not super bulky yarn, which is what I'm using, but I'm really just using it as a general guideline on how to make the puff circles, and then everything else in terms of the yarn weight, how many circles I'm using, how I'm creating the surrounding squares, that'll be the background color. I'm just gonna freestyle it and see what happens, but yeah. The next project that I worked on in May is actually, I started another pair of socks. I cast on another sock. It wasn't right after I finished my basic ribbed sock. I actually cast on this sock right after I finished the second test knit, so the tank top. I was just really craving to do a sock. Even when I was doing the test knit, I was just like, I need another sock. I need another sock. And I actually recently bought some more sock yarn from a local yarn store here in Chicago called Yarnify. And I went there for the first time early May, and fresh off of finishing the second sock, and I was just like, yes, the sock fever hit me hard. So I did start another one. So here's the sock. I love this yarn. The pattern is I'm So Basic Sock by Summerly Knits. It's a free pattern that you can find on Ravelry. I don't know where else you can find it, if anywhere, but I did find it on Ravelry. And I love it so much. So like I said, I'm a fairly new sock knitter. So this is the first sock where I did a contrasting heel, toe, and cuff. And you may recognize this contrast color because it is the leftover Toasted Mallow Bad Luck's Designs yarn that I used for my basic ribbed socks that I showed you in the beginning of the video. So this was a perfect opportunity for me to use up some scraps and also try a new sock yarn that I was really excited to try. So self-striping yarn, I'm fairly new to, but it is really, really fun to work with. And this is my first vanilla sock, so there was no like ribbing all the way throughout or any type of texture all the way throughout, which I really liked. And as a result, it worked up really fast. So I finished this over the course of 4 days. Everything from casting on to weaving the ends. And it probably could have been 3 days because the first day when I started it, I'd only done the ten rows on the cuff. So yeah, my main color is, I guess you could consider this self striping, but there's also some variegation in there. Um, it gives me like a vintage vibe. I don't know if you feel that way, but I really do like it. So this is a Barocco Comfort sock in the color Cosmopolitan. The number is 1816, Cosmopolitan. So I love the color. It's actually not a typical sock blend where it's usually like 80% superwash merino and 20% nylon. This is, I think, 50% acrylic and 50% nylon. So there's no superwash wool or anything in it. So the yarn itself, here's like I said, I haven't made the second sock. I've only made the first one. Here's what it looks like in the rest of the ball that I have. And you may not be able to see it super well, but it's not a twisted yarn. It's not a regular plied. It looks like some kind of chain construction. It's really a lovely range of colors. A little heavier on the pink side than I would typically prefer, but it definitely all has like a very earthy vibe to it, which I actually really like. And I think it pairs very well with the Toasted Mallow from Bad Looks Designs. I was super happy to be able to use up those scraps, and it just so happened to be a really, really good pairing together. So yeah, here's a close-up view of the two. This is what I have left after making the first sock. So it should be plenty to make the second sock, and I'm excited. And like I said, very happy to be using up scraps. So the next project I want to share is actually another pattern test. So this particular test is not a knit, it's actually a crochet test. The North Cap Cardiana, which is a cardigan and a Ruana pattern in one. So there are instructions for both the cardigan and Ruana. You can customize the length. It's super customizable, super beginner friendly, and very, very beautiful. Like I said, I'll try to pop in some pictures on what it looks like. I personally am not finished yet, so I can't show you what it looks like, but I can show you the progress that I have so far. Super lacy, super drapey. So the pattern uses a DK yarn. I don't know how well you can see that texture. So yeah, a DK yarn, and you work it in panels and then you seam the panels together. The yarn I'm using is Bernat Softy Cotton. I got this from Joann on sale. And this is actually a new yarn from Yarn Inspirations. And it is a 50% acrylic, 50% cotton blend. And the color I'm using is cotton. I actually didn't buy enough of this yarn, so I think I need to go buy 2 or 3 more balls to be able to successfully complete this. But this is 1 ball worth of crocheting here. And I'm excited because this pattern test came along at the perfect time. So I was looking for a pattern for a swimsuit cover-up for a vacation that I have coming up. If everything falls into place the way it should, my husband and I should be going to Belize at the end of June for a honeymoon / family trip. So we'll be seeing some family His family, he has family in Belize, and but we'll be there for a week, and take advantage of the beautiful weather and beaches and resorts, and hopefully have a luxurious honeymoon. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So yeah, that is the North Cap Cardiana by Laura of Murphy Made Crochet. And I'm excited to make some more progress on that. Coming to the interwebs soon. So that concludes everything I made throughout the month of May. Um, yeah, it was a pretty productive month. I don't realize how much I made until I sit down and talk about it. And then I'm just like, wow, I really have no life. A little bit of chit chat. So I did have a little update on a knit along that I mentioned in last video, because I actually won a prize from the knit along. So the Finish Fix or Frog Make Along by Dynamite Trujillo, Tommy of Dynamite Trujillo. I actually won a little prize um, giveaway for that knit along. A set of semi-precious stone stitch markers and progress keepers. So yeah, very pretty. Hopefully I'll get some use out of these and some other stitch markers that I have in my collection that I don't really use but are pretty to look at. Like I said, after my first video, I learned a lot about editing. I learned a lot about sound quality, video quality, lighting, and it is a constant um, progression. So bear with me as I learn and grow my skills around video creating. This is very much a hobby for me and not a profession, and I don't think it will ever be a profession, but I'm having a ton of fun learning, even though it's a lot of work. Like, YouTube is a totally different beast than Instagram. Like, I gotta be honest, after I made that first video, I was exhausted. Like, after editing it, for one, I didn't give myself enough lead time between recording and publishing to give myself ample time to properly edit. So that is kind of one of the biggest learnings that I took away from the first video. The second learning that I took away from it was investing in some quality audio. So I had a few conversations with Caleb of Drowning in Yarn, who kind of suggested investing in a good microphone. They're not that expensive, for one. And two, it makes a huge difference in the overall production quality of your final video. And so I'm doing some things differently to improve the audio quality that I hope works out in my favor. I'm not going to add any background music. Some people commented saying that it was too loud. Some people commented saying that I should get rid of it altogether, and I'm with you on that. I literally, at the tail end of my editing, I was so exhausted and just burnt out, and I was just like, I need this video to be done. I slapped some music on there probably because I just don't like the sound of my voice, and I was just like, nah, good enough, upload. And thus my first YouTube video was born. So definitely don't want to repeat that mistake again. And thank you again for those of you who stuck with me through that hour-long dumpster fire of a video. I also wanted to share some content creators out there who I've been enjoying thoroughly. So I briefly mentioned Caleb of Drowning in Yarn, and he is definitely one of the creators that I've really been enjoying. For one, he's so genuinely nice. Like, so we follow each other on Instagram, and he noticed before I ever said anything, I had put the link to my YouTube channel in my bio on Instagram just to kind of sneak it in there and see if people noticed. And he almost immediately noticed and messaged me to say, I noticed you have a YouTube channel linked with no videos, and he immediately made himself available to answer any questions or concerns. As a new YouTuber, he himself is a fairly experienced YouTuber. He's had his channel for several months now, and his video quality and audio quality is just really, really amazing, especially compared to where he started from. You can definitely see noticeable improvements in overall video quality. And he shared a lot of links to playlists and some of the audio equipment that he has, and some of, just tips and tricks that he has kind of learned along his journey. And he's really good for that, right? So if you're familiar with his content, he makes a lot of like tutorials, um, tips and tricks, from not only from himself, but like sourcing tips and tricks from the community at large, and putting it in a really digestible format and sharing it with his audience. And so he is very much so, um, one for sharing the knowledge and sharing the joy. And I really appreciate it because I have implemented many of the tips and tricks that he shared in the recording and editing and creating of this video. So a huge shout out and thank you to Caleb of Drowning in Yarn. Please check him out. I'll have his YouTube and Instagram linked below. So if you haven't yet, I think you would enjoy his content. The next person I'd love to shout out is Piece Per Piece Crafting. Piece for Piece Crafting. His name is Michael. He has a YouTube channel and an Instagram, and I believe he also has a Ravelry group for his YouTube podcast. So he's been podcasting for quite some time. He's local to Chicago. So is Caleb, by the way. And I'm in Chicago as well. So I feel like a special extra layer of connection with these creators. Michael's awesome. He makes beautiful things. He has a hilarious personality, and he is fresh into his spinning journey. And he is creating some beautiful stuff that I can only gawk at, because I don't think I will ever pick up spinning as a hobby. I think I'm at my capacity with knitting and crocheting, but he has a wealth of he's coming through with the inspiration on the spinning front. And he's just an all around, he seems like a really nice guy. And he actually shouted me out on his one of his latest episodes. So I really appreciate that, Michael. Thank you. And please check him out. I'll link his channel below as well. The next podcaster I want to shout out is a Yarn Tale. So Karen, her name is Karen, and her channel is called A Yarn Tale, Tail, which I thought was a really cool play on words. Karen, I don't know how long she's been knitting, but I do know she's in Chicago, and the YouTube algorithm showed me one of her videos, and I've been hooked ever since. She is so hilarious. Like, she's one of the funniest podcasters that I watch. And I don't think she really intends to be. I think that's just her demeanor and her personality. But I enjoy watching her content. I enjoy learning about her knitting journey. She shares her triumphs, her mistakes, and everything in between. And it's really, really fun to just sit and watch her videos while I'm knitting myself. Very cool vibes. So keep it up, Karen, and I think you guys should check her out. So I'll have her channel linked below as well. The next podcaster I want to shout out is called Knit State of Mind. So Heather and Wanda of a Knit State of Mind podcast. They are on YouTube. They also have an Instagram page, and they are a duo in the Bay Area of California. And I do feel a special connection to that area because my best friend lives in California. She actually lives in outside of Oakland, California. They are really, really fun to watch. They don't podcast super frequently, and they've been doing the social distancing. So their past few episodes have been like via Zoom, but their latest episode, they actually reunited in person, and it was really cool to see them. They have an awesome chemistry. They make some beautiful items. They're both, I think Heather is a very experienced knitter. She's been knitting for years and years, and Wanda maybe not as experienced, but they both are creating some beautiful projects, and I love seeing what they come to share. And yeah, they're a joy to watch, and so you should definitely check them out. Last but not least, I want to shout out Knitting Annihilator. So Akira of Knitting Annihilator has a podcast as well as an Instagram page, and she has been creating YouTube videos for quite some time, and she's very funny, and she's very real and down to earth, and she is very passionate about her yarns and her makes, and it's just fun to see her face light up when she's talking about a colorway or yarn or designer or fiber that she's just really excited to work with. And so her excitement rubs off on me, and I definitely feel the vibe. So huge shout out to Knitting Annihilator, and I'll also leave her information linked below. So that concludes all of the projects that I worked on during the month of May, and a little bit of extras for those of you who are curious to watch. Thank you again so much for tuning into my video. Thank you for subscribing, commenting, liking, and sharing. Like I said, this is purely a hobby for me, so I'm not in this to gain any type of massive following or turn it into a career. I'm just having fun and seeing where it takes me. If it takes me in those directions, I am along for the ride, and I hope you guys will join with me along the ride. All of the links to the relevant things I talk about in this episode should be in the description box, as well as ways to contact me. So my email, my Instagram, and my Ravelry page, where I keep track of all of the projects that I talk about. If there are any other types of videos that you want to see me create, I'm happy to give it a try if you're interested to see it. So leave a comment down below if you have any suggestions, or if you have any feedback on this video. I'm happy to hear it and you know, implement some improvements for the next go around. But with all of that said, I will see you next month.